Chapter 1147 is an odd mix of slow burns, spicy teasers, and some real hype. There are some pacing issues which we will get into, but also there are some incredible seeds that are being planted. Gunko continues to be a fascinating, layered character, and Brooke may just be the key to figuring her out. Who would have thought? Robin and Gabon are stepping up as the duo we didn't even know we needed, while the monster trio still seem to be waiting in the wings. We got the tension, new mysteries, and the chessboard is almost set for the fight to save Elbaf. But before we dive deeper into all of this, please click the subscribe button so that you don't miss out on any more One Piece discussions, and so that you can also help out your fellow One Piece fan reach 100,000 subscribers. I'd really appreciate it. Okay, first thing I want to start off with is the redemption coming our way for our girl Robin. Right from the get-go, this chapter begins with a flashback that gives us context as to why Robin and Chopper were hiding and seemingly cowering away in the last chapter. Saul told them to lay low for the sake of the Abarthian children, and he told them it's because there is no way that they can take on the immortal God's Knights directly. And a part of me can't help but wonder whether Oda actually saw the waves that the fans were making after chapter 1146, questioning the portrayal of Robin, because the way that Robin is drawn here in this chapter, she's actually quite literally in the same position, huddled over, shaking. But now we understand that she's not cowering, she is angry, she is focused, alert, ready to defend Chopper, ready to get into action to save the children. She is ready to throw hands. And I do mean like multiple hands. That's the Robin that we know and love. A small moment, but a huge improvement that really made me happy. Even after chapter 1146, I knew that this just had to be where Oda was going with this, because there is no way that Robin was going to let her oldest friend get in harm's way. The only complaint I would have is that we didn't get more of this, because Robin was definitely the most hype part of this chapter for me, and I felt like it took a longer time than necessary to deliver that moment, and I will get into what I mean by that a little bit more later. But in any case, I seriously hope that we get a return of Demonio Robin in Elbaf. I don't know how I didn't notice this back in Wano, but Robin's Demonio form has her trademark pre-time skip bangs. A hairstyle that has obviously made a glorious, triumphant return at Elbaf, and I have just realized the significance of her Demonio form having those bangs, because even right down to the design of her hairstyle, Oda was really trying to make a reflection of Robin's inner child, the child side of her that was forced to bear the cross of being unfairly blamed, unfairly branded as a demon. So now I really can't wait for that form to return, especially now that she has actually also decided to reclaim her childhood. You know, she has decided to bring back that old self. She's back with those bangs, you know, symbolically adopting her old hairstyle. A real full circle moment where Robin is getting a chance to rewrite her own path, her own story, all the while having her oldest friend here present to bear witness. It's really just beautiful storytelling, and I cannot wait. But Robin isn't the only Straw Hat that got their well-deserved respect in this chapter. I know that overall our crew's looking a little undeniably weak right now. You know, they've been captured, they've been hiding, they're playing defense. But I still found myself so hyped just seeing how the world is reacting to Luffy, and I'm sure you feel the same. The fact that people are treating him like a full-fledged Yonko threat, that never gets old. I mean, it's still so wild to me. And I love that it still doesn't feel quite normal. The sense of, wow, Luffy's that guy now. That hits me every time someone flinches at the mention of his name. That tension, it is delicious. And mind you, this isn't even just any old regular people putting respect to our captain's name either. These are the Holy Knights, the most elite combat crew that the world government have in their arsenal. This really is how far our little bendy boy has come. As for the rest of the crew, like I said, it's not looking too great for them. And I would have to agree with Nami here. Jinbei especially isn't looking all that great. And I do get it. These Straw Hats are just being used as hype tools because these are the Holy Knights, a new faction that has to get established. But I mean, come on, it's Jinbei. How funny is it to see our frustrations expressed in series been projected into the series itself via Nami, channeling her in a power scaler? Her comments about Jinbei not being able to do anything felt so tongue-in-cheek. And again, I just have to wonder, is this Oda's way of quietly responding to fans' outcry from last week? I mean, Gunko trashed the Straw Hat solo, and fans had opinions. Jinbei, though, always thinking ahead, is already considering how to treat the enemy and their very pesky regenerative ability. And like I said after last chapter, this is for sure leading to the crew's next power-up of figuring out how to deal with the regenerative ability, which was the biggest hurdle for them back at Egghead and is now continuing to be a problem here. But of course, the highlight, the absolute highlight of this Straw Hat versus Holy Knights section, 100% Brook and Gunko. Okay, let's talk about Brook recognizing Gunko. That little moment sent my brain into hyperdrive. You know, I have already been speculating a lot about Gunko as well as her connection to Brook, especially since we found out that she's a fan of his music. So here are top three of my theories, and they just keep getting juicier the more that I think about them, so let's speculate. First idea, the Soul King concert angle. What we know for sure is that Gunko is a fan of Brook's music, a big fan. So it's not hard to imagine that she may have attended a concert to see him perform live. Maybe she even had a fan moment, a fan interaction where she asked for an autograph, gushed about his songs. Maybe she even received a cheeky "only if I see your panties, yo-ho-ho-ho" line from Brook. And, you know, instead of slapping him, she laughed. But what if that sort of silly interaction became bigger, meant bigger? Like I said, I have speculated about Gunko's past and who she really is, and I would highly recommend you to go watch that video that's linked below. I've discussed how Gunko may actually be a former slave who has been elevated out of that caste to become a holy knight. So her love for Brook may be like a symbol of rebellion for her, of not taking herself too seriously in a world that forces you to kneel down to power. And is this a stretch? Maybe. But Oda loves his weird, heartfelt character links, and so what if deep down, this connection to Brooks' music is actually representing the only time that Gunko has felt free? Now let's pivot to a more lore-filled juicy idea. Idea number 2, the encounter at Marijois. We know that Brook was once the captain of a battle convoy of an unnamed yet to be known kingdom. And from the previous chapter, 1146, we found out that Brook was already aware of the Holy Knights' existence. And that puts him in a very small, in a very rare category of characters. So it's totally plausible that as an important military figure of a certain kingdom, he could have very well made it to Marijois. And during one of those trips to the Holy Land, he may have crossed paths with Gunko, who was already an established Holy Knight at the time. If that happened, maybe they had a meaningful interaction back then. You know, was it a fight? Was it a conversation? Was it a rescue situation? Who knows? But the tension between these two now feels personal. That look in Brooks' eye, that recognition, that subtle line of dialogue from Gunko, almost teasing that there is some definite history between these two. And what if that history is actually even deeper? Leading us to my favorite theory, idea number 3, the Rumba Pirates era. What if Brook met Gunko before he died, back when he was sailing with the Rumba Pirates? What if they were actually nakama? This would make their relationship ancient, potentially dating back to a time before Gunko was even a holy knight. And considering her regenerative powers, maybe she's also immortal or she has slowed aging like the Gorosei. That would explain why she could remember Brook from so long ago, and why Brook was so incredulous when he considered that he might know who she was. Because in his mind, there's no way that Gunko could still be alive, because whoever he remembers would have died decades ago. In which case, who loves music and would have or should have died many years ago? A fellow Rumba Pirates crewmate. And this theory would open us up to something even deeper. The fact that maybe Gunko didn't actually start out as a villain. Maybe she was once a free spirit, an ally, a performer, someone who danced to her own rhythm before being chained by the celestial dragons. I have also seen theories that their shared past may actually be back when Brook was the battle convoy. Maybe they came from the same kingdom, which could also make sense, especially if he was serving in some sort of musical kingdom, as many have speculated in the past. Either way, diving deeper into Brooks' past is definitely not something that I expected to be doing here at Elbaf, but I am also definitely here for it. And of course, we can't talk about Brook in relation to this chapter without gushing about his top moment. Standing up to Gunko to prove his loyalty to Luffy yet again. This isn't the first time that Luffy's Nakama has stood tall in the face of death, proclaiming their faith in Luffy, staring death down. It's not even the first time that Brook has had a moment like this, but man, it never gets old. You can tell how seriously he feels about the situation because he didn't even make a skeleton joke, and it was right there for the taking. I'd rather be dead than live without honor, except I'm already dead. Yo-ho-ho-ho. Seriously, what a top moment. As for Gunko, okay, I know I might need to walk back my hopes about Gunko switching sides, especially with how she was acting in this chapter. She straight up demands for Brook to become her music slave, and it's hard to interpret that as anything but peak celestial dragon energy. But bear with me here, hold on, because what if there is actually more going on here? So Brook obviously refuses her offer, or well, command, and this interaction might seem quite straightforward, but I am also wondering, maybe this does go way deeper. And bear with me here because I know it may sound like I am reading way too much into things, but humor me. What if Gunko was just testing him at this moment? What if she actually wanted to see whether the Straw Hats were the kind of people who would bow to power, or if they stand firm in their convictions? I mean, think about it. The Celestial Dragons and their knights have unimaginable power. Anyone who opposes them is basically writing their death certificate. If Gunko is secretly looking for someone to follow, someone worth believing in, if she's trying to figure out whether Nika is the real deal, then Brook's resolve is exactly the type of thing that she would be drawn to. Loyalty, bravery, rejection of corruption. He's a living, or should I say an undead? He's a living embodiment of honor. And that might be why she reacted the way she did after attacking him, because we see her grimace, a little humph, and you could interpret that in multiple ways. I mean, the most obvious is that she is offended by his defiance. She throws a little tantrum. Or, and this is my hot take, maybe this reaction is because she's remembered of a past that she's trying to forget. In this little panel, it's a little unclear what's exactly happening, but it seems like Gunko could be grabbing at her chest. You know, she grabs at her chest as she humps. Or maybe it's her shoulder. The more obvious reaction would be that she is crossing her shoulders as if she's upset. But what if she actually is clutching at her chest? And what if that's because she carries a mark on her chest from being branded when she was a slave? We know that that is common celestial dragon practice. And although she is now a holy knight, supposedly in power, she still feels that pain, physically and emotionally, whenever she's reminded of how far she's fallen. And Brooks's words of loyalty and bravery in this chapter might have hit her right in that scar. We might be seeing our first real crack in the Holy Knights' armor, both literally, physically so, and, emotionally. Maybe Gunko's image as this unwavering god is wavering. Maybe she's not as invincible as she wants people to believe. Now, while we are in speculation mode, let's discuss Angie and Lord Jarul, because I can't help but feel that there is something seriously sus going on between these two, or with these two. You guys know that I've had my doubts about both these characters in the past. It seems like they both may be part of some conspiracy that also involves King Harold, and this chapter makes them look even worse. Let's start with Angie. After becoming the prime suspect for making the kids draw their worst nightmares, basically creating the most perfect situation for Saint Killingham to exploit and wreak havoc on Elbaf. On one hand, in chapter 1146, it did seem like she fell victim to the Holy Knights herself. She was paralyzed by Killingham's attack as well. But then it has also been pointed out to me that she's the only teacher that was put under paralysis rather than being quite violently physically attacked. And on one hand, she did seem genuinely concerned about Elbaf's fate here in chapter 1147. She wasn't too thrilled about the Holy Knights' plan to eradicate Elbaf's history and their libraries, their scholarly culture. But then on the other hand, why on earth is she revealing that Elbaf now holds all the findings of the O'Haran scholars? What on earth does she think that will achieve? Does she think that the Holy Knights are going to take kindly to the fact that that O'Hara's research has survived? There is no way they're going to be pleased. What is she doing? It feels like she has essentially ratted out Elbaf and made things worse. At the moment, I'm thinking that maybe the side that Angie is on isn't that she's loyal to either Elbaf or the world government. Maybe she's actually just loyal to King Harold. Maybe that's why her actions feel so inconsistent and hard to read. There may be some sort of misunderstanding where Angie didn't necessarily mean harm to come to Elbaf, but she just is really trying to fulfill King Harold's wishes. Maybe she wants to honor his legacy, but in so doing, all her actions are having these unintended consequences and putting Elbaf in serious harm's way. As for Jarul, I just don't feel like he's acting like the legendary warrior that he should be, that we're expecting him to be, that the Elbafians are surely expecting him to be. And look, I do understand that he must be past his peak. He is getting on in his years now, and he has also just found out that his own great-great-granddaughter has been kidnapped, to be fair, to give him some sympathy. But why is he shocked that he should be taking charge of the situation on behalf of Elbaf? I mean, surely he knows his position in this kingdom. He is the legendary hero, and like I said, I'm sure the Elbafians are very much expecting him to be a leader, and I just think that there's something going on here with Lord Jarul as well. His actions, his dialogues throughout this arc, I just haven't felt that they all line up. But okay, enough speculations for now. We are gonna switch gears because I also have something to get off my chest. As good as the chapter was, and don't get me wrong, I really thoroughly enjoyed it. I would say a solid 7.5, maybe an even 8 out of 10, but I do have to admit that there was a large part of the chapter that, I don't know how to put this, honestly felt like a little bit like filler for me. The entire midsection, Summers' announcement, the 10 Elbafian children, the crowd's reactions throughout Elbaf, I just think that all went on for way longer than it needed to. And I didn't notice it on first read, I just thought that it was a longer chapter, but then when I went back to reread the chapter, I couldn't help but notice that the pacing, the paneling felt a little off here. And the chapter isn't actually even unusually long. It's 18 pages, which isn't hugely different than chapters that we've gotten in the past. So it's not that this chapter is long, it just feels long because of a strangely paced out midsection. I mean, we get multiple, and I mean multiple sizable panels of the Elbafian children just marching. And this isn't anything new, we've seen them marching in previous chapters. And then Oda also focuses a panel each on all of the Elbafian children, and just in general, just this whole section just felt like it was dragged out. I mean, in some panels, we're not really seeing much of anything. I mean, this is a super long shot of Summers. I mean, why? What does that achieve? And look, I get it. Oda is building tension. But the paneling just still felt off for me. What do you guys think? Did you guys notice that at all? I guess I've just gotten used to Oda cramming in heaps of information into tiny boxes, but in this chapter that was the opposite. We get these big chunky panels that barely move the story forward. I mean, Summers took 10 pages to explain his goal and his plan to Elbaf. And I don't mean to complain because I don't mean to suggest that it was all unnecessary. I mean, I really did enjoy diving deeper into the personality of each, the characterizations for each of the children. And I also can't help but wonder if that they're meant to reflect the Straw Hats in some kind of way. I mean, maybe as future parallels or thematic mirrors. Or maybe these kids are going to be important in explaining some more of the Elbafian lore. I mean, take Johanna, for example. She is seemingly an orphan and has these horns that suggest that she may be of the ancient giant lineage, potentially hinting that the reason why she may have no parents may be because that they were part of the ancient giant soldiers who were all killed during the battle between Loki and King Harold. You know, those bones that are now rotting away in that castle's graveyard. And I do appreciate that it is moments like these that add more to the character of Elbaf and Elbafian culture more generally. Like, I enjoyed seeing all the motherly manifestations, especially that one which looks suspiciously like Big Mom. And the giants' reactions were fun, don't get me wrong. I do have to say that because we've moved pretty quickly into the action since arriving here at Elbaf, we haven't had as much time to explore the little quirks and little elements within Elbafian culture as we usually do at the beginning of an arc. I feel like a lot about Elbafian culture has just been taken as assumed knowledge because of what we know about Viking culture and because we have been introduced to Elbaf in the past. And so I do understand and I do quite like that we are getting a little bit more teased out here. But even as much as this section did add further color to Elbaf and their citizens, it also did drag. And I just felt like this could have been achieved more succinctly and that time or panels could have been better spent elsewhere. Like, I just don't feel necessarily invested into some of these no-name giants to justify how much real estate they were taking up. I mean, those panels could have been given to the Straw Hats. They could have been given to Robin. This chapter feels deeply personal for Robin. Between Saul getting attacked and the threat to the school, to the library, to the legacy of the O'Harans, she is staring down a replay of her O'Hara nightmare. And yet the panel that shows her shaking as we see her hearing the order to burn the library down, that's a tiny panel. It's criminally tiny. For a moment that ties so closely to her trauma, I just felt like we should have had much more focus. And don't get me wrong, I still felt her anger and I still got incredibly hyped by the end, but I do think it deserved more. The moment deserved space. And Oda's usually so good at giving emotional beats room to breathe, so I'm not sure why this one just felt so understated, especially when we had all of those big crowd reaction panels earlier. Am I crazy, or do you guys also feel like the pacing was a little off? What was Frankie even doing in this chapter? Like, he's there technically, but there's no dialogue, barely any focus. He's shaded like some background NPC. Come on, Oda, give the cyborg some love. I just can't help but feel that these dragged out scenes felt like it was because Oda is trying to fill up the pages, fill up the page count whilst getting ready for the next big chapter or something big, something bigger in the next chapter. It's a slow burn here because he doesn't want to spoil anything for what's gonna come in the next chapter, because I do fully expect the monster trio to make their moment, and I will get to that a little bit later. And look, maybe I am complaining too much. I know I sound spoiled. Again, I still thoroughly enjoyed the chapter, but I am used to gourmet One Piece pacing, and this one just felt like, I don't know, a slow Wednesday buffet. But look, I don't want to seem too ungrateful, so let's move on, because otherwise it really was a great chapter, and I don't mean to complain. And it does definitely have me very excited for what is coming up next. I mean, how can we not be? We are being teased of a potential team up between Robin and Scopper Gaban. I mean, that is actually so crazy, but this sort of tag team would make so much sense. Both these characters have personal stakes in protecting the library and saving the kids. Robin, as I discussed just now, about things getting personal, and things just got very personal for Gaban. This is not just a battle. This is a rescue mission to save his own son, and now we are finally gonna get the chance to find out why this man is called the Mountain Eater, what it took to be the Pirate King's left hand. And I am all in for the emotional punch that this is going to deliver. I do feel that this tag team could really deliver a very emotional, a high emotion, high impact fight. And if Gaban is finally stepping into the spotlight as one of the most anticipated character for, since forever, then this could be the moment that we really have been waiting for. Especially if he's going to be the one to square off against the Holy Knight head on. Maybe the chance to finally show us how to deal with the regenerative ability. Whereas for Robin getting a spotlight is always a win, and pairing her up with someone from the old Roger era, I mean, that's just fan service done right. Whereas for Colin, I mentioned earlier in this arc that we are surely getting a big moment from him, and it does seem like we are slowly building up to that. His little "I'm tough" line followed immediately by his fear, terrified reaction. That was funny, that was hilarity. But I do think Oda is setting us up for something big, especially after giving a focus to each of the other Elbathian children. I do think that we are building up to a turning point where Colin is going to inspire the others, going to turn them all into warriors, not just with bravado, but with real courage. Now, closing out with some even more further hype, let's talk about some of the characters who were very obviously missing in this chapter, our monster trio. Summers' announcement wasn't just a plot bomb. This is a signal. The return of the monster trio is coming. We didn't see Luffy, Zoro, or Sanji in this chapter, and that is 100% on purpose. I feel like the chapter dragged a little in this chapter, didn't give us too much, because Oda is really saving all that impact for the next chapter. Oda's holding out for maximum impact. When these three reappear, it is going to be epic. It's going to be out of nowhere, explosive, and probably with Loki on their side. The fact that we didn't even see them react to the announcement on page, that means that they really are being saved for some massive entrance. And knowing Oda, it's going to be a real turn the page and just scream kind of moment. I'm really bracing myself for Luffy to come in with a huge Nika grin, Zoro with some new fantastic move, and Sanji with the most dramatic kick that you can think of. I can really feel it. But until then, in the meantime, let me know what you thought of this chapter by leaving a comment below. Let me know what you're expecting in future chapters. If you enjoyed today's discussion, please like the video, share the video, and please do subscribe for more One Piece discussions. You can also help the channel out further by becoming a Patreon or channel member like these wonderful, wonderful people. But as always, thank you so much for listening to another one of my ramblings. This is JoyGirl, and I'll see you again soon.